Hello students, how are you all? Welcome in the history class of 6th standard. Today we are going to start lesson number 6, the Vedic civilization, under which we will read the topics the Aryans, the Vedic period, sources of information, Brahmvrat, the early Vedic period, Aryavrat, the later Vedic age. So students, at the end of this lesson, you will be able to know about the lifestyle of the Vedic period and also identify the differences and similarities between the early and later Vedic period. So students, in today's class, we are going to read only first three topics, the Aryans, the Vedic period and the sources of information, under which you will read the Vedic literature. So students, before we proceed further, I would like to discuss its important terms with you. First term is Indo-Aryans, the branch of Aryans that settled in India. Number second, Sapt Sindhu, the land of 7 rivers. Next term is Brahmvrat, the land of gods. Next is Aryavrat, the land where Aryans settled in India. Next, Vedas, knowledge. Next term is the Rig Ved, the oldest Ved. Next is the Sam Ved, the book of chants. Next term is the Yajur Ved, the book of sacrificial prayers. Next term is the Atharva Ved. The Atharva Ved is a collection of songs, spells and magical charms. Now students, let's start reading the lesson. The Vedic civilization. The Indus Valley civilization had begun to decline around 1500 BC. It was during this time that a new civilization called the Vedic civilization developed in India. Students, you have already read about the Indus Valley civilization, which began to end around 1500 BC. After that, a new civilization came into existence in India called the Vedic civilization. Let's read further. The Aryans. The word Aryan is originated from Sanskrit word Arya, meaning noble plus an. Most historians believe that their original home was in Central Asia or northeast Iran. Students, originated means derived. So, the word Aryan is derived from Sanskrit word Arya, which means noble. So, the Aryans means the noble people. According to the most of the historians, the original home of the Aryans was Central Asia. Let's read further. As the population of the Indo-Europeans increased, they were forced to move out of their original homes and migrated to different locations. It is also believed that they might have left their original homes due to unfavorable circumstances. So students, what do you mean by Indo-Europeans? Indo-Europeans were those who spoke languages like English, Spanish, German, Latin, Persian, Hindi, etc. The word migrated means resettled and circumstances means conditions. So students, when the population of Indo-Europeans increased in Central Asia, they were forced to move out from their original homes and resettled to different locations. And there were also some critical conditions under which they forced to move from their original homes, like might be due to climatic conditions, natural disasters, scarcity of food, etc. So might be due to these reasons they were forced to move from their original homes and resettled to different locations. Let's read further. While some groups of Indo-Europeans settled in Europe and Western Asia, others migrated to India. So students, during migration, or resettlement, Indo-Europeans divided themselves into some groups. Some groups of Indo-Europeans settled in Europe, some groups settled in Western Asia, and the remaining groups of Indo-Europeans moved towards India. The Aryans who came and settled in India came to be known as the Indo-Aryans. So students, which group of Indo-Europeans settled in India came to be known as the Indo-Aryans? So what is the meaning of Indo-Aryans? You have also read about it in the important terms. Indo-Aryans, the branch of Aryans that settled in India. Students, I hope now you understood the origin of Aryans. Now let's read further. Do you know box? The word Aryan is related to people speaking an Indo-European language who invaded northern India in the 2nd millennium BC, displacing the Dravidian and other aboriginal people. So students, invaded means occupied, aboriginal means native, and millennium means a period of 1,000 years when calculated from the date of the birth of Christ. So students, the word Aryan is related to the people who speaking an Indo-European language. So, which are the Indo-European languages? Indo-European languages are English, Spanish, German, Latin, Persian, Hindi, etc. So, the Indo-European people who occupied northern India in the 2nd millennium BC were known as the Indo-Aryans, who forced the Dravidian and other native people to leave their home. Dravidian were the native people of North India during the 2nd millennium BC. Now, let's read the Vedic period. The Aryans entered India in stages. The early Aryans first settled around the river Indus and its 5 tributaries, namely the Ravi, Beas, Chenab, Jhelum and Satluj, and the river Saraswati, which is now a dead river. This whole area came to be known as the Saptasindhu, or the land of 7 rivers. The Aryans also called it Brahmvrat, or the land of the gods. Students, as you already know the meaning of the word tributary, a small river that joins the big river. Students, see this very carefully. This image is showing you the river Indus and its 5 tributaries. River Indus is also called the river Sindhu, that is located in Pakistan. See its 5 tributaries: Ravi, Beas, Chenab, Jhelum and Satluj. The river Saraswati was also its tributary, which is now a dead river. River Saraswati was one of the rivers mentioned in the Vedic literature. This river has been disappeared due to some climatic change or might be some other reasons. That is why the Saraswati river is known as the dead river. All this area where the early Aryans came and settled is known as the Saptasindhu. Saptasindhu means the land of 7 rivers. The period of migration into the Saptasindhu ranges from 1500 to 1000 BC. It is called the early Vedic period or the Rig Vedic age, as the Rig Veda was composed during this period. So students, the settlement of Aryans around the 7 rivers, which are known as Saptasindhu, ranges from 1500 to 1000 BC. During this period, the oldest Ved, that is the Rig Veda, was composed. So this period is known as the early Vedic period. Let's read next paragraph. Gradually, the Aryans started settling in the Gangetic Valley, that is, the plains of the rivers Ganga and Yamuna. They occupied the whole of northern India between 1000 to 600 BC and called this area as Aryavrat or the land of the Aryans. This period of their settlement in the Gangetic Valley is known as the later Vedic period. So students, here the gradually means slowly. Gradually the Aryans started settling in the Gangetic Valley. The plains of river Ganga and Yamuna are known as Gangetic Valley. The Aryans captured the northern India between 1000 to 600 BC. So, this area of Gangetic Valley is known as Aryavrat or the land of the Aryans. And the other three Vedas were composed during this period. So, due to this reason, this period was known as the later Vedic period. So, students, the Vedic period is divided into two stages: the early Vedic period and the later Vedic period. Now students, let's start reading of the sources of information of the Vedic age. Our sources of information about the Vedic age are solely literary, as we have no archaeological evidence belonging to this age. So students, solely means only. Meaning of literary is written. Archaeology is the study of past by remains, and evidence means proof. So students, we have only written sources from where we get the information related to the Vedic age. The Rig Veda provides us valuable information about the early Vedic period. The Sam Veda, the Yajur Veda and the Atharva Veda furnish our information about the later Vedic period. So students, these are the four Vedas from where we get the information related to the Vedic age. As we have read earlier that the Rig Veda was composed during the early Vedic period. So, the Rig Veda gives us the information related to the early Vedic age. And the other three Vedas, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda and Atharva Veda, which are composed during the later Vedic age, gives us the valuable information related to the later Vedic age. We also get knowledge of the later Vedic period from the Brahmanas, the Upanishads and the two epics Ramayana and Mahabharata. So students, the Brahmanas are the commentary on the Vedas. The Upanishads are Hindu religious books. So students, we get the information about the later Vedic age from the three Vedas and the Brahmanas and from the Upanishads and also from the two epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The story of Ramayana revolved around the Lord Ram and his wife Sita, and the story of Mahabharata revolved around the Kauravas and the Pandavas. So students, these are the sources from where we get the information related to the Vedic age. Now let's read Vedic literature. The word Veda is derived from the root word Vid, which means to know. So students, from where the word Veda is derived? From the word Vid, which means to know. So the word Veda means knowledge. It is supposed that the ancient rishis wrote the Vedic hymns under inspiration from the gods. They were then handed down from generation to generation. When the Aryans settled in India, these Vedic hymns were compiled into books and given their present form. Children, ancient means old and hymns means mantras. Inspiration means motivation. Compiled means assembled. So, the rishis of the ancient times wrote the Vedic hymns under the motivation from the god. Then they handed down from one generation to another. When the Aryans settled in India, these Vedic mantras were assembled into books. That is known as the Vedic literature. The Rig Veda is the oldest of the four Vedas. It contains 1028 hymns, sung in the praise of various gods and goddesses of the Aryans. So, children, the oldest Ved is the Rig Ved, in which 1028 mantras sang in the praise of many gods and goddesses of the Aryans. We get information about the political, social, economic, and religious life of the early Vedic period from Rig Veda. The Sam Veda, or the Book of Chants, contains 1810 hymns that are sung at the time of sacrifices. Sacrifices means offerings. So, students, the Samved is the book in which those mantras include which were sang at the time of the Havan Yagyas. The Yajurved, or the book of sacrificial prayers, lays down the procedures for the performance of various sacrifices. In the Yajurved, the rules and regulations included which were followed at the time of the Havan Yagyas. The Atharva Ved is a collection of songs, spells, and magical charms to control and ward off the demons and evil spirits. So, students, spell means write the letters in correct sequence. Charms means attractive. Demons means devils. Evil spirit means bad soul. Ward off means to keep someone and something away. So, students, the Atharva Ved is a collection of songs, right sequence of hymns, and magical attractions to control the devils and bad souls. The Vedas, together with the Brahmanas, the Upanishads, the Purans, and the epics, collectively form the Vedic literature. So, students, these all are the sources from where we get the information about the Vedic civilization. These literary sources are collectively form the Vedic literature. Let's read Check Your Progress. Do you know any Vedic hymn? To which Veda does it belong? Tell its meaning to your friends. So, students, if you know any Vedic mantra, then find out from which Veda does it belong and share its meaning to your friends, and you can also share it with your family. So, students, our today's class is over. I hope the topic is clear to you. Now, your homework is you have to reread today's topic